MZTV.
At the end of the week here, in the final months of Millennium 6, I'm going to talk about the political situation. I'm going to update you on the end times, where we are. I know you've been waiting for this a while. I got a letter here from David and Susan Nitschke, who are good friends and supporters of the work. They go to the conferences. They are extremely interested in these things of God, and they wrote me a letter, and I'm going to address it. Here's the letter. Dear Martin, I'm assuming this is from David. I would like you to comment on the last 7 years before the return of Christ. If the kingdom begins in 2027 or 2028, 2,000 years from the start of his ministry in 27 or 28 AD, then the last 7 years starts in 2021. I was under the impression that the first 3.5 years of the 7 are to be relatively prosperous. Well, I used to think that too, but we don't know that. I'm going to explain that. Well, 2021 is almost over, and prosperity seems to be very elusive. Don't worry, it does now, but it won't be for long. So do you have any thought as to where we are in the countdown? Is there something wrong with our thinking? Great letter, David. Worthy considerations. These are things of consequence. And no, there's nothing wrong with our thinking. Is it possible that the tribulation has already started? I have to say, yes, it is possible. It is possible that it started last year. I'm thinking of the peace treaties that the orange guy, DJT, initiated with various countries in the Middle East. The first mention, the first vision we have of the man of lawlessness is in Daniel 9, and it has to do with the treaty with many, a treaty with many. And we don't know what happened to those treaties when the exhumed body came in, the illegitimate leader. We don't know. Did they just disappear? Did they go into thin air? Is Kushner still working on them? Are they still applicable? Is there something on hold? I just think there's a lot to that. Now, don't panic, because if the tribulation has started, and it eases in, just like I said yesterday, you're not going to see these wild things happening at first. I think the whole thing began really September 23rd, 2017, with the sign in the heavens seen by John in Revelation chapter 12. Talked about that extensively. Go back to my Revelation series, the final years of Millennium 6. I think that was the sign that things were starting and that these things would happen swiftly. Swiftly doesn't mean obviously. That's an important statement I just made. So I'll say it again. Swiftly does not mean obviously. Now, David remarks that he thinks he was always led to believe that the first 3.5 years of the 7 are to be relatively prosperous. Well, 2021 is almost over, and prosperity seems to be very elusive. You know why? Because we have an exhumed body in the oval-shaped working area in the house that is colored white, that is out to destroy the most powerful nation in the world on purpose. Of course, the exhumed body is not even sure what day it is or where he is or if he is. So there are elitists and globalists and communists pushing hard to hurry up and make this country communist, because as goes the United States, so goes the rest of the world. That's been the dream and the goal. In my country, there's a voting thing happening next year that is going to go deliriously bad for the people now in charge, because and they realize that, so they're trying to push hard to get everything they want. It's a communist dream list. I don't want to list everything because I don't know how closely monitored this is, but you know all the elements. Our energy, the line where the country is supposed to start has been eliminated. Energy is huge. Our lifeblood is being sucked away, siphoned out on purpose, so that the population will have to rely more and more on the government. And when this happens, the government becomes more and more centralized. And there's a party in office now that all they care about is power. And the people who still support this party and they think that they're trying to help people, my God, wake up and smell the hammer and the sickle. Gotta be kidding. It's all about power. Politicians aren't supposed to be this way. They're supposed to be in there for a short amount of time to help people. They're not supposed to be professional politicians. Where are the term limits? I don't know. Once people get into that, inside that beltway, they only care about is getting more time there, how to keep their jobs going. And they'll compromise, they'll do anything to keep their jobs, keep that their special status, to be able to go to the right parties. And they get free haircuts too. It's an amazing thing. But this is happening in order to set the stage for the white horse rider. Because things are slipping away so quickly that I got to say this very carefully. It's a miracle to me. It's a wonder that there haven't been, let's just say, groups of people who love the Second Amendment and who know what it's for, to protect us from tyrannical government. I'm wondering what's stopping those people from getting organized. And you know, well, Louis the 16th, the French Revolution. It's the hand of God keeping that from happening. It's the thing that happened in 1863 here in the United States of America. But the stage is being set for a deliverer to save us from the madness, because that's what's happening. It's mad grab for power. But the White Horse Rider is a conqueror, and I believe that White Horse Rider is DJT. I still do. I'm waiting for somebody else to come on the scene. I'm willing to be wrong about this. You say, well, Martin, the voting thing, and I'm using this term to keep from using the E word, the voting thing doesn't happen again until 2024. According to your calculations and the calculations of others, that's the midpoint of the tribulation. Well, there could be events that happen before that that could change the situation dramatically. And we're looking at days of dramatic change. We are looking at days of dramatic change. Now, the White Horse Rider is followed by the Red Horse Rider, followed by the Green Horse Rider, followed by the Black Horse Rider. White Horse Rider is the Antichrist, comes conquering white. The Red Horse Rider is wholesale slaying. And I'm going to give you the definition of slaying after I read about the four horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation chapter 6. Then comes famine, the Green Horse Rider, and then death, the Black Horse Rider. I used to think that these four horsemen had to appear in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. I don't think so. I think they can, it could be a spread out thing that they happen as things go along. The prosperity mentioned by David here is coming, but I don't think it necessarily lasts 3.5 years. In fact, I don't think it will last that long. Maybe it'll last a year. Nobody knows for sure. That's the thing, because Revelation is not the easiest book in the scriptures to read. Of course, I did a whole series on it, 3.5 years. Go to my homepage, martinzender.com, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the Revelation series. Check it out. I covered every verse in the book of Revelation. That's why it took 3.5 years. You say, well, Martin, if the tribulation has already started, we're still here. That means that pre-trib is out. Yeah, that would mean pre-trib was out. But it's a mistake to think that the only other option is mid-trib. Who says? We could still be snatched away 2.5 minutes from now. Or we could be snatched away 2.5 minutes after the tribulation begins. The prosperity is going to come, the deliverance, but then the death is going to come. Let's look at the writers here. I'm reading from the Concordant Version, chapter 6. And I perceived when the lambkin opens one of the 7 seals, and I hear one of the 4 animals saying, as with the voice of thunder, come. And I perceived, and lo, a white horse, and he who was sitting on it has a bow, and to him was given a wreath, which means conquering in battle. It doesn't have to be an old-fashioned battle with tanks and guns. It's a battle of information. It's a battle of ideology. It's a battle of execution. And he came forth conquering, and that he should be conquering. All right, that's a couple conquerings. Verse 3, and when it opens the second seal, I hear the second animal saying, come. And forth came another horse, fiery red. Remember, John sees these horses, but there's not going to be literal horses on the earth. And to him who was sitting on it was given to take peace out of the earth. These are spiritual beings. The horse represents a spiritual entity that has power to affect things on the earth, to put thoughts in men's minds in order to affect events on the earth. And that they should be slaying one another, and a huge sword was given him. John saw the sword. It doesn't mean people are going to be slain with a sword. That's the problem. This is what John saw. But do you think it's going to be an actual red horse like the Wizard of Oz? The horse is a horse of many colors? No. And the sword is not a literal sword. It represents something. What does it represent? Slaying. When we think of slaying, we think of people being cut in half with a sword. We think of a violent death. We think of people's heads being cut off. But listen to this. Slay. Merriam-Webster. Transitive. Number 1. To kill violently, wantonly, or in great numbers. I believe that the VC that is now being pushed into people's bodies with amazing force and amazing persuasion that is causing people, even with principles, to crack. I think that is going to result in wanton death. The people administering this from high up are purposely and wantonly, that is, without care. Wantonly, actually, wanton means in the Greek, I forget what the Greek word is, but it means under cover of the moon. Under cover of the moon, that is, in the darkness. When nobody's looking, nobody's watching, in the secret chambers where they plan these things, the goal is to kill. We think of killing violently, but the definition of slay is also wantonly or in great numbers. Let's go back to the verse in the Concordant Version. And forth came another horse, fiery red, and to him who was sitting on it was given to take peace out of the earth, and that they should be slaying one another. Who? What? The people of the earth. And a huge sword was given him. Don't look for a little sword. You'll still be waiting for it after it's already happened. And when it opens the third seal, I hear the third animal saying, "Come." And I perceived, and lo, a black horse. And he was sitting on it, has a pair of balances in his hand. And I hear, as it were, a voice in the middle of the animal saying, "A chenax of wheat, a denarius, and 3 chenax of barley, a denarius, and the oil and the wine you should not be injuring." This is like $1,000 for a loaf of bread. It's famine. I transposed the horses there. I said that the green horse came before the black horse, but the green horse comes last. The black horse is famine. The green horse, I perceived, and lo, a greenish horse, and the name of him who was sitting on it is Death. And the unseen followed him. This is all figurative, but it's representative of literal things happening on the earth. Death, the absence of life, the unseen, is a figure for death. It means unseen. Where'd they go? That's what the word means. Where did they go? Where did they go? And jurisdiction was given them over 1/4 of the earth to kill with a blade. Well, this is interesting. The blade shows up. I do believe that these are in order. The blade of the greenish horse is not the same as the sword of the red horse. A huge sword was given to the rider of the red horse. Here we see a blade. Later in the tribulation comes the literal blade, cutting people's heads off. But before that, there's mass extinction of humanity, wanton killing. And that is manifested on earth as wanton killing. John sees a sword, but here, when the greenish horse arrives, there's a literal blade. Because now the killing is different. Jurisdiction was given them over the 1/4 of the earth to kill with the blade. That's a different thing than the wanton killing that happens under the red horse. And then death, 1/3 of the earth. 1/3 of the inhabitants of the earth. Dead. So, we could be in it. If the treaties signed by DJT before he left the oval-shaped work area counted for anything. If we're not in it yet, then we're very, very close to being in it. And I can't see the exhumed body serving out the term. I see DJT coming earlier than 2024. I think it has to be that way. And you might say, well, lots of things have to happen before then, Martin. So, yeah, I know. But they're going to, because of the first verse of Revelation, that these things will happen swiftly, in rapid succession, like dominoes. But right now, I see the stage being set for the conqueror. That's step one. I mean, like quickly. It's quickly being set. This country is falling apart purposely. It's purposely being dismantled. And people are waking up to it. And to me, it's amazing that the Paul Revere types aren't doing something. But God is staying the hand. Or maybe not. Maybe that's... I honestly believe that that's being planned behind civil doors. Civil doors. You know what I wanted to say when I started civil? I wanted to say civil, and the next thing rhymes with door. That was in my head, but I know I can't say that. So I will say, behind closed doors, the only thing that has to happen is to get enough of them. Enough of them. I'm going to say this very, very carefully, and I'll end with this. Don't despair, ladies and gentlemen. We could still be snatched away 2.5 minutes from now. Anytime up to the midpoint. The midpoint, in my mind, is either 2024 or 2023. If we're a year off, I think we're a year off in that it's sooner. This is what I believe. So I'm going to say this very carefully, and then I'll end. I believe it would only take 5,000 Paul Revere types. The trick would be organizing and not being detected. And the Paul Revere types would have military grade, you know what? And I think that 5,000 of them could take out number 1, number 2, number 3. That body of judges that occupy that white building, gone. Several, you know that thing where you put stuff in your cabinet, right? You put clothes in your cabinet. Several of them. And there will be a new American order. We have the right to do that when government becomes tyrannical. You and I have no place doing it. We have no reason to do it because our kingdom is not of this world. Would I like to see it? Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I would love to see it. Excuse me, pardon me, forgive me, Lord. Freaking love to see it. And if it's not that, then that votey thing that happened November of 2020 will be flipped on its head. That could still happen. I just about expect it to happen. So September 17th, September 23rd, 2017 started the ball rolling. And it's rolling. But like I said yesterday, for now it's not happening, obviously. It won't happen, obviously, until the middle. Then God himself is going to turn against the human race in order for them to learn righteousness, in order to get through their thick skulls, because he just chooses to do it that way. He hardens people so that he can do this, so that he can make a point, i.e. Egypt doesn't want a quiet exodus out of Egypt. There's your template. Egypt and the plagues. There's your template right there. God purposely hardens Pharaoh's heart in order to do what he did. God is purposely making politicians stupid. I mean, really, really stupid. Evil, dark, in order to do what he needs to do. And he's blinding people so that he can do this. You see, he's blinding people so that he can come with these plagues, bulls, thunders, scrolls, and wreak havoc. To make a point that the human institutions of this system, of this cosmos, are flawed and lacking. And they will be changed soon. And we will be changed soon.